Good to have that. Just to remind everyone, we ask that all those who attend sign in. We don't require that you sign in just to attend. However, if you anticipate speaking, you do have to sign in. All right, phone says it's 6. Order. Thank you all for attending. Hello to folks online. If anybody online. Everyone's here. On the agenda, we're going to add an item under action items. It will be item E, the BMX group contract. Although when we get to action items, I'm going to actually move that up. But here we go on the agenda is item E.
The new agenda already has an E, so that's probably.
No, it's E, and then what's E now is coming out. Sorry for that confusion. Do we have any other additions, deletions, editorializations about the agenda? If not, I will move.
I move we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Nope, we're to the regular agenda first. Just the agenda. Remove approval of the agenda
as amended.
That's what I heard, yes.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We have 3 items on the consent agenda. If anyone has any questions on any of those items, we can pull them off. Otherwise,
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Carries. All right, public participation. We have 2 things for sure, and others not on the agenda, which may be some folks, I'm not sure. We allow folks 3 minutes per person under public participation, which is 30 seconds more than we got at the legislative hearing today. So anyway, this is Trails Committee report, but we have Trails
Yes.
Committee later on down.
Quentin is on Zoom. He'll give the
okay.
report.
All right, that was very static. All right, there he is. Okay,
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, but you're out of order wearing that shirt.
I thought I heard a duck somewhere out there. All right. Am I good to go? Good to go?
Yes.
Awesome. For folks that don't know me, my name's Quentin Comas. I'm a student at Oregon State University, as one might allude. I took over as chair of the Chehalem Heritage Trails Advisory Committee here in December after our previous chair, Jill, resigned. We thank her for her service. And we had our most recent meeting here in January, about 2 weeks ago, and we had a number of items that we discussed and voted on to recommend to you for adoption and consideration. The first being our bylaws that I believe is in your meeting packet. This was adopted from the Bob and Crystal Riley Advisory Committee, just as basic bylaws that help govern our meetings and our member eligibility. So that was passed unanimously by our advisory committee, and we hope that you will consider to adopt that so we can abide by that. We also recommended trail signage recommendations. So this came out of request and interest from park staff or CPRD staff to look into signage, particularly around the absence of signage and the troubles that is causing at Bob and Crystal Riley Park. As such, I sat down. I believe I'll talk about an internship here shortly. and looked at the available trail signage options that exist within federal and state agencies and the best practices surrounding those. Took that information to our advisory committee and created 3 separate recommendation packages for you to consider to adopt across the district, but again, particularly at Bob and Crystal Riley Park. That packet, including the 3 recommendations and all of the research that we conducted, is in your meeting packet. And I'll just point out that the recommendations are in order of our preference. So the first one including the most amount of signage, and the third, the last recommendation, including the least amount of signage. And there's cost analysis provided with those for your consideration. And finally, we had a member bring forth a recommendation for the managed use of the trails at Bob and Crystal Riley Park, following public concern over trail user interactions that were undesirable, particularly between equestrians and cyclists. As such, following discussion at our meeting and with CPRD staff, we unanimously approved a recommendation to, in the short term, make all trails west of Parent Mountain Road be managed as pedestrian and horse trails. All trails east of Parent Mountain Road be managed as pedestrian and bike trails. Again, this should be in line with staff recommendations, and we propose that this be in place until the new master plan for that park identify any trail management system otherwise. So there are 3 items there for your consideration, all of which unanimously passed at our January board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any general questions?
I thought it was really, really well put together. So, you know, I appreciate all 3 of your committee bylaws, the signage recommendations, as well as trying to keep Crystal Riley Park safe for folks. So thank you for all the work that you and the rest of the committee has done on this.
I was at the meeting also, and Quinn did a great job of leading it. We were out there like an hour and a few minutes. It's pretty impressive. And you know, he did a lot of work on this, and I was very impressed. So they're on the right track. I appreciate all the work the trail committee's done.
Okay, when we take these one at a time, the bylaws are pretty cut and dry.
I move that we approve the bylaws for the, hold on, let me get it correctly, the Chehalem Heritage Trails Advisory Committee.
Second.
Okay, moving seconded. Any other discussion on bylaws only? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. On the signage recommendation, I don't know, I know Brian is here. I don't know if I have horse people here or not. Okay, good. So have you folks seen this? Got some yeses, got some nos. Those who have seen it, what do you think, ma'am?
Well, my name's Hope Robertson, and I'm with Oregon Equestrian Trails. It's fabulous recommendations. I mean, it's a very high-class sign system. It is going to be expensive. So I have no idea what your budget is, but in terms of using car signs with decals, it's very flexible, it's very safe for bicyclists and horses and pedestrians. But if there's a chance that you're going to be changing the trail usage significantly, that would be my only question, if you want to do something else as a temporary measure, financially, that's all. But I thought that they were all 3 excellent recommendations. I have used all of those systems and various trails around US, so they all work.
Okay. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it looks good. It's in line with what you see in different places. I think the nerd in me says that, you know, like, while I would probably accept their recommendations as the guideline, when you get on the ground, I mean, to Hope's point, it's a lot of signage. And I think you, like, just that you would find in certain places, you might be able to pare it back just from based on the real conditions, right? The Brighter Republic is smaller than a lot of national forest trail. And, you might find there could be overwhelming spots, but as a guideline, I think adopt that and then obviously adjust based on real conditions. Yeah, very much in line with Lacey.
I have one other thing to add. There was discussion at the Heritage Trails Committee about maintaining some of the existing names that are on some of the trails. And if you do that, and if you go the route that you've gone with rock art, for example, every time you have a unique name, it's not a standard decal. And I know from our experience, when we did unique names like that, each one of those decals could cost upwards of a couple $100. So we thought that was exorbitant. So we found local decal companies that will meet all the same standards and go on your sign, and they're just as good. So we would pay local sign companies to come up with the unique names, and it was a quarter of the cost. So if that's something you do, where you have all these unique names, you might want to look into hiring. I mean, I looked online, there are a bunch of decal companies around the New Bergen area, and it would save you a lot of money rather than going to rock art.
Okay, appreciate that input, and we will sit Kat on that, that's part of her bailiwick. So, anybody else want to comment on the signage recommendations?
Yeah, I'd like to segue, Mr. President, real quick, is that what you said, I know that the trust and those namings were named after people that had donated to the parks in different ways, different times. So for some folks, it may be important to keep that history, so just to note that.
I wouldn't anticipate us changing any historical names. John, is there a staff recommendation on which of these three proposals to adopt?
I think we should probably go with the
I would be,
best.
yeah, but in knowing that what Brian said there, that it might be more than we need, but at the same time, it's better to budget more than not enough. Make sure it's safe.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
I think safety is the most important, so I recommend.
There might be some opportunities for us to contact local businesses to get some like reflective stickers and things like that, but I would just, I kind of warned Brian and we kind of put a budget number together for budgeting next year, so.
Okay.
In the neighborhood of $30,000.
Right, move forward to hearing that at the budget committee in April. He says with a straight face. Art.
So I think we made a commitment prior to citizens to try to have this done before we open the season for hiking and equestrian and bicycling. And if we wait for budget approval, that might put us in a bind. I think,
We have to start now because those signs take a while to
yeah,
get made.
or maybe I didn't understand, but that's my recommendation is we just wait tomorrow.
whole sign package is being done there.
Yeah, we're not gonna do the whole thing right at one time. It's just that we know how much money we need to budget for.
I agree with Bart, is that if we can get some signage up, at least preliminary signage prior to the use this spring, and then go through your budget process, and then get more signs up and purchase them, then that's great. But I think that the public is asking us, we'd like to have some signage up there, so we do it ASAP.
Yeah, for safety, it's needing to.
Well, for ease of use, when I've been up there, I have a hard time figuring out where to hike, and so I'm really looking forward to.
Knowing where you're going.
Yeah, exactly, and knowing where to park, and, yeah.
Any other discussion?
I just want to second, I think there's a balance between the safety concerns and,
I'm sorry, and you are?
sorry, my name's Lauren, I'm a Sherwood resident and an equestrian that rides up there quite a bit. And
Thank you.
I think there's a balance between safety and I have a question on the next agenda item, but And also, part of the reason why I love that park is that it's natural, right? And so I'm questioning, and I'm a little bit late to the party, honestly, but the safety component, what we're trying to gain with signs, and is it a result of previous decisions that have been made or are to be made about bikes and horses today? So it feels a little bit like the cart before the horse, but I'm just specifically on the signage, I think it's important to preserve the natural environment as well and not have it be like a lot of the other parks around here where it's all littered with man-made pieces of plastic.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready to proceed?
Do we vote on this?
Do we need to vote on this, or
I
is
don't
this
know
a
if
staff?
Yeah,
This
I
is a
think
recommendation, or, I mean, does it have to be voted on by us, or is this something that we just ask the staff to do as part of
To
the
do the right thing.
daily operation?
I think in previous meetings, we've agreed that signage is a huge issue and is something particularly at this park that does need to happen for safety. So,
We do. I feel that the committee and the young man from OSU whose name is escaping me at the moment, Quentin, I mean, they brought these to us and they asked us to approve them, and so I would like us to go ahead and do that. And so, again, I think we need to do one at a time, so the next one would be the signage recommendation. I'm just simply looking for a motion to approve their premier signage recommendation with the understanding that staff will, mitigate that as they actually do the signs on the ground.
well, so moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries. And then we have the cannabis use recommendations, which is, pretty much in line with what we've talked about until we get, a formal master plan, as we're gonna keep horses over here and bikes over here. This accomplishes that. Can the horse and bike people live with that while we hammer out the master plan?
I just have a clarification question. Does that
Sure.
mean that horses are not permitted on the east side?
Yes.
Correct.
And why is that?
Well, we, for the past few months, have had a number of conversations with a lot of the people that are here. And there have been incidents where there has been concern over horses and bikes being in the same space. And there has been crossover, and thus it is, the danger piece has been well documented in this space, and thus to keep people from having any injury out there, the recommendation by the trail committee has come forward to separate the two activities.
So my confusion, I think, is just that I understood that the park was designated originally for full equestrian use. And so if bikes were being introduced to the trails, wouldn't there be not, and maybe this is part of the master plan, I understand, but maybe there would be less of a drastic solution than cutting off the whole east side to equestrians, which is very different trails than the west side.
I think that will be addressed in the master plan discussion, because there will be public hearings and public input on the master plan. I think that from all of the input that we've received over the last several months, I think this board, I don't want to speak for all the board, but I will. I think this board feels that it's best in the interim period to keep the horses in one spot and the bikes in another.
Yeah, just my input would be that the temporary solution should not be quite as drastic, because then it's really hard to take back. And I think taking the east side trails away from the equestrians is, even if it was, at our own risk, is not appropriate, given the initial outline of what that space was dedicated for. And there's not nearly as many equestrian trails as there is other trails, which I know all of you, that's been discussed before, but it just, it doesn't feel equitable at all.
Okay, I appreciate your input. I would, and sincere, encourage you to, when we're doing the public input phase of the master plan,
Yeah.
to come back, give that input, bring friends who feel the same way. I mean that sincerely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Brian?
Yeah, I support the Heritage Trail Association's proposal. That was in line with the original Riley Park Advisory Committee. The only thing I'd throw is maybe, right, until we have a master plan, kind of a question, okay, maybe consider a process for conditional use, right? So overrides, bike practices, or things that come up, right? Recognize that that's potentially a communication challenge, but would there be a process? If one of the groups wanted to have access over the weekend.
I think that's how the problem started.
Yep.
Exactly.
So I think that we're going to be pretty, I mean, we'll always hear a request, and when I say we, I mean the district, not the board. That would be a staff issue to direct to Casey, first of all. Consult with Don. Anybody can always ask, but my feeling as the chair of the board is that during this interim period, no, we're going to keep horses here and bikes here. But you can ask. Yes, ma'am.
So do you anticipate that putting in a process for what, is it Brian outlined, will be under consideration for the master plan? Because I think it has been a problem in the past because there wasn't a process, right? But if there is a process as part of the master plan, that gives the most people the most access to the most part of the problem.
I would certainly hope, and if I'm still here working on it, yes, that would be part of the whole of the master plan. Yes,
Just real quick, so you're gonna spend money on.
again, I need you to identify yourself.
Oh, and Beth Kaiser.
Thank you.
You're gonna spend money on signage before there's a master plan set in place?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's dangerous. Yes.
Wow, okay. Just needed to clarify
But
that.
a lot of that signage is generic, so it can be moved.
Mhm.
So, I mean, until we put the names of the different trails on it, so I don't think that we're throwing money down the.
You're not wasting money.
No,
No.
a lot of that's generic, so I don't think
Okay,
it's a problem.
thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Steve Paulson, what is the timeline for the master plan? How far out into the future is it?
9 months to a year.
Our RFQ went out, it's due on the 15th of February, and we anticipate anywhere from 6 months to a year for the master.
So in that interim between 6 months and a year, we talked about this in November, the last time we were here. What is in place if, how people are, it's like on the golf course. You're not supposed to cart path only with people. They don't always obey those things. So how are these people supposed to operate?
That's why the signs.
In the meantime, they just have to follow the signs? That's the plan.
Signs, and we're working on some volunteer rangers, for lack of a better phrase, to do some policing, for lack of a better phrase. Guiding.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion
Yes, please.
to approve the Bob and Crystal Riley Parks Trail Management use recommendations.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion from the board? Sensing none, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to thank the trail subcommittee. They've done an excellent job on the Bob and Crystal Riley Park. I really appreciate, especially Quentin Comus doing the survey with his associate in the internship program. But really, the whole committee put in a lot of time on that, and it's going to be a great asset. And I think that trail is going to get a lot more use as we publicize it and keep it safe.
Thank you, Quentin.
Glenn, are you still there?
Yes.
Good job.
And Kat did mention that you might be interested. I have, sub 5 minute kind of overview of that report about the trails itself, if you like me at this time to also do that.
Yeah, I don't think most of the people in the audience have seen it, so if it's
Sure,
all right with the chair.
Go ahead while we still have you here, and that way we don't need to keep you till it comes up again later. So, go right ahead.
Awesome. Well, again, I completed a trail inventory at Bob and Crystal Riley Park as part of an internship at Oregon State University. In doing so, I utilized United States Forest Service standards for trail maintenance and objectives management. Essentially, that lays out a classification system for ADA accessibility, the development level of a trail, what managed use it should be based off of characteristics that are pertinent to that. So, for example, equestrian trails require specific clearing height, obviously, to allow for riders and the actual horse to safely pass through obstacles such as tree overhangs. And so in doing so, walked every single mile of trail with a few minor exceptions of trails that were too steep and too rugged for us to get to. But in total, there are approximately 12.4 miles across the entire park. 5 miles of those trails are located on the tax lot east of Parrot Mountain Road. So that would be where the farm property is. And then the other 7 miles are located on the west side of the road. And you'll see in the meeting packet, there's a wide range of maps that outline several parameters here, but I really want to pay close attention to a few, specifically the trail class. So in the Forest Service, the class simply means how developed is the trail. So if you imagine you're out in the Three Sisters Wilderness, you can barely see the trail tread in front of you. It's very natural. That's going to be a class 1. That's very remote. Whereas a class 5 is going to be your paved path going through the golf course. Is going to be compacted, pretty much ADA accessible in most cases. So there are parameters from the Forest Service on the classification of trails based off of their width, their tread height, or their clearing height, their tread width, the maximum grade over certain distances if there are obstacles and so on. So we went through and on every single trail that we mapped with the GPS, we classified the trail against these parameters as a general class. So this means in general, any recreationalist, how developed is it? And then we also went into more specificity and said, okay, there are parameters for equestrians, hikers, and cyclists. What is the development of each trail, all 12.4 miles? In segments, what is the classification for each one of those user groups? So what that does is, as we're going into the master plan process, in our deliberations as a committee, we took this information and said, okay, we want a variety of trails for the end user. So when we're talking about groups like pairing of equestrian and hiker, we want trails that are accessible to them in whatever area that we designated, like the recommendations that you adopted tonight. We want that to have variety, and we want it to be within parameters that are safe. And likewise for cyclists, the same applies. There are specific guidelines for their trails that we wanted to make sure that we had a diversity in their level of ruggedness or development. Most of the trails on the east side are significantly developed, meaning they have, mostly compact tread that you can easily see. There's an access road there that's used as a trail. That's compacted gravel. The trails on the west side are a little bit more rugged. They go through a more difficult terrain, and they have some thinner treads, so less actual compacted dirt that you walk on. There's a general trend in wider tread widths on that east side again, and thinner ones on the west side, so a little bit close quarters. And when you're talking about ADA accessibility, there's federal standards for that. There is no expectation from our committee or conversations with staff that any of the trails have to meet ADA accessibility, but we went ahead and ran the analysis, and no trails, as expected, meet true ADA accessibility. But there were about 50% on the east side, that's 50%, did meet a 200-foot interval compliance rule. That means over 200 feet, there's a maximum grade before there has to be a resting spot for someone that, for example, might be in a wheelchair. So there's a full trail inventory here with all the data. If you're a data nerd like me and want to get into it, And there's a series of maps that kind of outline this data in a visual format. But in general, we're really happy with the results of this inventory project, using it against a standard system from the Forest Service, which we've also been using the Forest Service standards for our trail signage recommendations. Generally, they're probably the best trail management agency there is, given the quantity that they have and the history they have of doing so. And we plan, my roommate actually from Oregon State University will be doing another internship in the spring here, starting in April, to do an inventory of the same nature with the same outcomes, the same deliverables for all other CPRD parks that have trails on them. So my project that you see here in your packet focuses solely on the Bob and Crystal Riley Park. We will have this same data and the same information, the same analysis for all the rest of the parks that have trails. So if there's ever any conversation that wants to happen in a master plan process or from a staff perspective for designating trails for specific uses, or how do we sign these trails, this information will be extremely vital for that process. So overall, I will say it took the entire term, all 3 months. We went out there on Black Friday, but it was a beautiful sunset. So I really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you to CPRD, especially Kat Ricker, who is my advisor, and Brian and Casey for their support. Really appreciate this opportunity and happy with the results.
Go Beavs.
Go Beavs. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
All right, you can go back to school now. So, okay, that should finish that up. For anybody who's here about trails, even though old business item B has trails in it, I think we have finished discussion of trails for the night. And so we'll do pickleball and the golf course there, but not any more about trails. So if you're only here about trails and you wish to leave, you're free to do so.
Don't leave yet, horse people. I would say.
All right, others not on agenda. Must be somebody. Steve?
We got the timer?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
So I just got a couple notes here. So Steve Paulson. First, I want to thank a special shout out to Kat, and Julie's not here tonight, Julie Peterson, but if you could pass this on to her, I'd appreciate it. Avid, as Jim knows, avid at the Aquatic Center Fitness Center every morning, 5 a.m. And we just, lately, there've been some, opens 4:30, even though the posted hours say 5:15. The doors were unlocked, so then, me and other people might get there quarter till. Well, there's started to be some more, for lack of a better term, riffraff and just weird, just different people coming in, shooting around with shirts off. It was just getting a little weird for me. And I'm like, can we just adjust the time? Like leave the doors locked until 5? Just move the time, move it back. I don't mind waiting. And neither does anyone, might have ticked off a few of the others. But anyway, I appreciate, it just feels more secure. You've only got a couple people in there. It's in the middle of the night almost. And so thank you. It was quick response. I really, really appreciate that. Secondly, so, y'all know I live at the golf course and I'm active with the community, and people feel safe to come up to me and voice different concerns, and they just feel it's a safe space to just vent away. You see me and my 200-pound plus dogs all over this town, and a nice gentleman employee, came up a couple weeks ago along with a few other people, and they just voiced some concern, just concerns about funding specifically for pay for employees. I know there was that raise, but as far as new positions, mechanics, other things like that, I just think the wages aren't market value, in my opinion, specifically at the golf course. I think it's going to cause issues going forward unless those are addressed. And they just want hope. The people want hope, just like the people in this community want hope. And I just don't think they have that under the current circumstances and the leadership here in a lot of aspects. Finally, the last time we got together, which was in November, I stood up here, the horse people, sorry, I don't know everyone's name, but I said, listen, decisions need to come. I announced in public that changes were coming. That was in November. Changes came in this town. The mayor got changed. The city council got changed. The school board got changed before that. And the next up is 4 months away, which is in May, and that's the CPRD board. And I have every intention of supporting change within that board as well, because I think it's needed, and I think the people deserve better from a fiscal responsibility standpoint, from a transparency standpoint, and just quite frankly, just a new blood and new voices. And so that's where I'm at, and I appreciate the time.
You have 17 seconds.
Hey, go Beavs. Quinn was still on there.
Okay, now you're out of order. Anyone else?
Don,
Tom,
yes, thank you.
you still have to identify yourself.
I'm Tom Hammer. I live in Yamhill County. I continue to be disappointed that CPRD has not withdrawn its letter to the county requesting that it be able to obtain custody of the Yamhill West Sider Trail. This board voted 4-1. It'll be 2 years next month to have Don Clements talk to Ken Huffer and find out what the challenges would be for CPRD to turn that into a trail. He never gave that report, and the board never required him to give that report. So I think it's time for the board to exercise their authority that they're charged with by the taxpayers and the voters. Direct your director to withdraw CPRD's request for the county, of the county to seek custody of that trail. There's two reasons why Don never did that. Number one, there's no legal way forward for that trail. There wasn't 2 years ago, and it hasn't changed. And the other reason he didn't do it was because the board will not hold him accountable. The tail wags the dog. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Would you say again what the report was that you asked?
I'm sorry?
The Ten Holden report? The report, what was the report that you said? The 10?
There was a vote of the board in March of 2021, which will be 2 years next month. That's what I referred to in the. Did I answer the question? I'm not sure I heard. I don't hear very well. I'm old. I'm good looking, but I'm old.
Yes.
Speak if possible. My name is Dawn Paulson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I am here because of the November meeting where I was made aware of what was going on at Bob and Crystal Riley Park. I started looking through the minutes from meetings and then also the budget that all right here. So I guess it's just a really disappointing bunch of information that I came across. So I can only focus on one thing, but it's going to be the track record of the board. It feels like 4 years of Groundhog Day. 9 years ago, February of 2014, was when CPRD acquired that park. Here's the document right here. People got together, they formed a committee to make recommendations on what to do with the park. Here's the minutes from that meeting. January 24th, 2019. Some of the highlights that I want to go over are a lot of the things that people are still talking about today. We are land rich, cash poor. We rely on grants and volunteers to make sure properties are used. Everybody came up with ideas for plans, but nobody came up with ideas of how to pay for them. Don Clements talked about how past projects were made possible through volunteers. I thought that was really interesting because 4 years have passed and Don Clements has collected $450,000 worth of paychecks from CPRD and he wants volunteers for the park. So to me, this shows proof that there's not a whole lot going on to move things forward. The other thing I forgot to highlight on here, the people that were on the board, Bart Ryerson, Lisa Rogers, Don Loving, Jim McMaster, who was on staff at CPRD at that point, also Don Clements. Nobody's different. Everybody's still here. 4 years later, hasn't done anything. So, in my opinion, it feels like we need new blood at CPRD. If you look around town, like my husband said, boards have changed, committees have changed.
Mayors have changed.
Mayors have changed. City council's changed, so people are paying attention, and people really want to see that things are being done. I will say it's not too late. You still have a chance to move forward, move things forward, but you're gonna have to start acting now to make a difference, or the voters of the town will act for you. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your input.
Sorry to hold y'all up.
I have a comment. You know, there has been work done up there. We went ahead, the county required us to do certain things, and we did those things, like building the fence along property lines, making sure our septic system's up to grade for use. A lot of things have been done up there that you may not know about, that have taken place in the past. And also, we inherited a situation where there was a trust. The trust was basically could not handle the administration of the park system anymore, so we said that cost of that park, it would be good for the public to have it. Have there been challenges? Yes. Will there continue to be challenges? Yes. But I think that when you say nothing has been done, I think a lot has been done that may not be reported back to the public because it's not a sexy situation to talk about as far as, you can talk about trail signs and stuff like that, but there's a lot of other infrastructure that was done and taken care of. So I appreciate your research. I do. I think that's great. There's a lot more to it. So thank you for that.
Perception is reality, and it looks like the can has been kicked down the road for 4 years.
Anyone else? Okay. Sincerely thank everyone for coming and for their input. We move on to the action items on our agenda this evening. And we're going to move our new item E up, and we're going to do that one first. We have good news to report, and that we have a proposed contract agreement between the BMX folks and us. So I'll let Casey tell us about that. Ryan is here from the BMX folks. If he wants to chime in, he can do so as well. Casey, we'll start with you.
A little bit of history. There was disagreements down at the BMX last year and how it was being run. And their president of their nonprofit resigned, and they reformed the nonprofit, registered with the state. And looking at all the agreements and things, that there hasn't been one for quite a while, and their association with USA BMX was not in, I would say, good order, let's put it that way. And so in order to change the way that they're gonna run the operation down there, we requested to have the contract redone and signed so that they can move forward with their facility down there, with our facility, and them being able to run events down there. So I would like the board to approve the contract with Chehalem Valley BMX and move forward with that organization.
Okay, I know the answer to this, but just for the record, so our counsel, John Bridges, has gone over this and it has his approval. Correct. And it came to me after the board packet was done, so it got submitted late. No? Brian, you want to add anything, or anybody else here at BMX?
I'll defer to David.
Well, I'm David Miller. I'm the acting TO track operator for this 2023. And you know, this is a little bit of a new situation, going over a contract that, you know, should have been in process a long time ago, but all in the new and in front of a bunch of strangers and et cetera is a little bit odd for me. So I apologize if I pause and et cetera. I mean, everything looks really good. But there's a little bit of a concern on the fee per rider. And I realize and I fully accept, like, helping pay for utilities and restrooms and those items. But there's, depending on what, sometimes there's a little bit of a struggle just to net some funds from each race and go immediately right back into the track. So, I mean, we're wondering if there's a little bit of area for discussion on that fee per rider.
Well, the reason that I left that in there from the bear tracks was the fact that you guys wanted to pursue advertising, and that may require us to do some things, and we do help out when we can.
Right.
Not like we kind of just abandoned you guys down there. So that was one of the things we looked at.
Okay, I mean, this is like the,
And it also-
we've been on some emails, and this is, I was hoping I would have, or we would have a discussion before this discussion, I guess, as well.
Well, it keeps everyone
Accountable for sure.
accountable.
Yes,
Yeah.
on both ends,
Yep. Exactly.
so.
Okay, so let me say there's no urgency on the board's part to approve this at this meeting. We could do it next month. If you want to negotiate, for lack of a better phrase, some changes in this agreement, that would be with you and the staff. Our only role there, our role is not to negotiate with you, it's simply to approve a contract that comes to us.
Right.
And so if you want to change it, we can certainly just table this for this meeting, and you guys can talk over the course of the next month, and we can bring it back next month, if that's what you wish to do. Yeah.
My name's Meredith Emery, I live here in New York. The contract, after looking it over, this all looks really good. We did feel like the $1 per rider per race is a little steep, just considering what our budget is, and we're wondering if we were to accept this contract today, are we able to come back and discuss that one line item on there, next month, because we've got timelines with USABMS we need to meet in order to.
The sanctioning body.
Yes,
for
in order
scheduling
to
our events.
schedule events and move forward, which we would love to do.
So, sure, if you need the contract approved for that, we could approve it tonight. You would still do your negotiating with staff, and if, you are successful, so to speak, staff can bring us a recommendation to modify that line of the contract. That's no problem. That seems to be the only thing hanging things up there. Or,
Yeah, I'm curious about membership fees for the riders, and the district is no membership fees?
We don't
receive
receive them, USABMX receives
I
them.
see. Okay.
Yeah, we don't.
And is there a charge for each rider for each race?
There is, it's small, sometimes it's $5. So
And it goes
$1,
towards
and we've got,
trophies
we pay for trophies, we pay for all
Right.
the
So-
maintenance of the track, which
So
is.
from the sanctioning body, we have what's called a TORF fee,
Mhm.
which covers our insurance per event, plus just our fees for each event that we pay to use USABMX. So it kind of encompasses everything. So I mean, that's the only part of this that I just wanted to talk it through a little
Sure.
bit.
Well, and the one I'd just like to bring up too, and I hope that you would communicate with our staff, and I'm sure that they'll work, because we have a policy that we don't want to exclude anybody that couldn't afford to do a race, and if the staff, if we can somehow subsidize or, work with you guys to make sure that, nobody's excluded because they can't pay that $5 or whatever. So, I mean, they gotta have a bike, obviously, too.
Director McMaster?
From a historical standpoint, I understand how much work it takes to maintain that track. And I've always appreciated in the past of the 4 or 5 different organizations that I've dealt with when I was here, the amount of work they put in. And if the CPRD had to put that much work in, it would cost. So I was surprised to see there was a dollar value them per rider in the contract. I know that they do pay for all those medals and trophies and everything else out there. And so I think we should take a different look at it. I don't know if I want to approve this contract as is unless the ABA needs this. Is that my understanding?
They do.
We
They do for
need the
scheduling.
contract to move forward with scheduling.
Okay, then I need to ask that we have some type of a motion that will review this contract and maybe look at rewriting it a little bit, because I do know that some of those kids, can't afford the gear alone to be able to go and do what they do on that track. So, just however you want to phrase that, that's great.
Yeah, my feeling is that we can approve the contract to get done what these folks need to get done. They can talk to staff. We can certainly modify that one section of the contract if staff asks us to do that at a future meeting.
Thank you.
We appreciate that for sure. Thank you.
Don?
The old contract had the $1 in it. We never received it.
Yeah, I know. We never
What we said was, use that money and give it to the kids that can afford it. And we left that up to the organization itself. So we would probably do the same thing with you guys.
We do have a fleet of 12, 13 loaner bikes for kids that don't have them. We've got a bunch of helmets for kids that don't have them.
Right. Then that was the way it's been in the past. So it's really a moot point.
Can we just modify this right now and just take that section out and then approve this contract? I mean, is there a need to collect the, if you're never getting it anywhere? Can we just
You wish to make a
leave it?
motion to that effect?
So I will move that we approve this contract between Chehalem Valley BMX and CPRD, removing section I from that contract.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion amongst the board on the motion? Sensing none, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, there's your dollar. Contract.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for maintaining what you guys do out there. I really appreciate it. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Glad this worked
I
out.
know.
If
I were a Hubert resident,
Hi,
I'd
Peg.
vote for you.
We need to sign, should I go
Do we
talk
need
to
to
Don
sign
or
anything?
Casey about signing?
Well, they'll get
Okay.
they'll
You got
revise the
tonight?
contract and
No,
they'll get it
no,
all
but
signed.
I
Yeah, you
just,
just need a Casey, I think.
Casey.
okay,
Casey is your
He'll
point.
probably
Yep, okay.
revise it by removing that section.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
We'll actually get a clean copy rather than give you one that's just all scratched out.
okay, I can come over and chat with you a little bit later.
Okay.
We got an executive session after this,
Yeah.
so
If there's a break or something, I can just go over and chat with him, or right now, if that's fine.
Okay. We're now going to jump back up to item A, which is to approve resolution 010123. Sandra, the state park grant. Don, you want to briefly tell us what the background is on this, since Casey is closed right now?
It's just applying, as the board is aware, you passed a resolution to apply. We applied, something happened, we didn't get it, then the state came back and said, we'll give you the money, but we'll give it to you in two different sections or two different grants. One was the state grant, we got 170 something. Then land and water will get 300 or something, 500 and something thousand. So this resolution just covers that, that's all.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
Can I ask a straightforward question? Because all the money
Can
that,
I, first you need to
Contract
identify
violation.
yourself, and then I'm supposed to believe you're gonna ask a straightforward question.
absolutely,
Okay.
all the monies that you're receiving under these grants, were they under this, the one which you applied for? The purpose and function?
Yes.
Okay, answer the question.
Excellent. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Move and second to approve resolution 010123, local government grant application. Is there anyone have any further discussion? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed, motion carries. Item B, approved grant application for phase 2 of the bypass trail. Anything you need to tell us about this, Dawn or Casey?
That,
Or Guy?
phase two.
Phase 2 will just pick up where phase 1 left off there over off Winooski. There's a smaller bridge in the second section. The second section will take us through connecting to Dundee. And we're in a good position to apply now, even though we haven't begun construction on phase 1, because we have all of the site work done, engineer in place, already under contract. So we did run this by in a conversation with the powers that be in ODOT and asked them if they thought it would be a good idea for us to do this at this point, and they confirmed that they thought it was a good idea. So we're moving forward with it.
Okay, any other questions, or any questions, Robert?
Move we approve the grant application for phase 2 of the bypass trail.
Second that.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Those opposed, motion carries. Resolution allowing superintendent to sign the resolutions. We already do that.
This is more specific towards the state of Oregon has funds that it collects of unclaimed property. I went in and found that the district had approximately 15 claims sitting out there. So there is very detailed steps that we have to take, and this is one of them to allow Dawn to sign for us to succeed on those claims. Although there's 15, it's only looking at a couple $100, but it's our money that we need to collect.
Okay. Motion to approve resolution 0103. On you go. Thank you.
I'll second.
Moved by Gail, seconded by Lisa. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. All right. Cultural Center homeless camping. This is an item that Director Rogers asked to be added to the agenda tonight. I'm going to ask her to speak on it.
So as a member of this body, I am also on the Cultural Center Board. And over the last probably year, I don't know if y'all have noticed, there's more and more homeless that we have here in Newburgh. There's a homeless shelter that is up on College Street, but they're closed during the day. It's only for people to sleep at night. And so during the day, a lot of those folks are coming and they're hanging out in front of the Cultural Center because they can use the facilities and everything. Recently, there have been a couple of incidences at the Cultural Center that have given rise to concerns both by people using the center as well as people working at the center, that they're uncomfortable and they're worried that there could be something unfortunate that could happen. It's a really difficult situation. I don't know what we can do. I think we probably need to sit with the city and whoever else to figure out what we can do about this. There are legal issues, but we as CPRD own the building and the outside. And so I thought it was important to bring it to your attention that this is a concern, and that we need to probably figure something out, but I don't think we can do it as an entity by ourselves. I think we have to get the city, the police department, potentially, I don't know that the school district needs to be part of it, but I don't know that they wouldn't want to. Because we gotta make sure people are safe. So I don't have a recommendation at this point, except to potentially set up a meeting. And I know, Dawn, that you have already, I mean, just because you have homeless folks in the parks and stuff, and you've had these issues in the past, and I know that you work really well with the police department, but it's becoming, I think, more prevalent. And so I don't know whether it seems like it would be a good idea maybe for our bodies to get together and try to come up with some sort of compassionate enforcement or whatever legally we can do to help folks as much as we can, but also make sure that people feel safe.
We'll bring it up at the joint meeting, which is the first Tuesday of each month, and I'll bring it up with the city. I did go by the cultural center today around, I'd say it was between 10 and 11. Policemen were walking, not only the library area, but the cultural center, and was talking with various people and doing that. And it looks like it's getting a lot better. I think they're already on top of it, would be my guess. I think they're already addressing the issue. Whether they'll forget in a month will be a matter, but I'll bring it up at that joint meeting.
I have a question. Did we change the hours on, I know we put the public bathrooms in and so on, which I think is great for the general public. Did we change those hours? Do we close those at a certain time now?
I'm gonna let Brian talk to you about that, because we've had to make some changes.
I noticed there was a sign up there. The second thing is that one of the things I noticed with, especially at Memorial and now even at the Cultural Center, if you have an electrical outlet outside, it draws folks to plug their phones in. And there is an electrical outlet right outside, and they are plugging their phones into there. And that's a draw, I think. Not that they don't need to have their phone powered, but that will draw them to the location. So just something to think about.
Brian, you have any input for us?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the previous board meetings, that we in Newburgh are no different than anywhere else in the great world of ours, that we are feeling the effects of people that are houseless or sleeping outside in one form or another, just like everywhere else. We absolutely have a very good working relationship with the public safety. We absolutely are a major stakeholder in having contact with individuals who are in this situation for whatever reason. And I think it's a great idea, and other towns and communities are doing that, where they're getting together and talking, get those stakeholders together and work together and communicate and try to come up with some resolutions instead of, I think in years past, a lot of places will put blinders on and figure that, hey, that's something that happens in big cities, it doesn't happen here. And we know better in this room that it's a microcosm, it could be on a smaller scale, but anything that's ever happened in a big city is going on here also. So we have taken steps at CPRD. We're very proactive in engaging with people that may be in that position. We've come up with some really good literature that CAT has produced that lists all the resources that people could get help. I engage daily with people and offer that to them and hand them out. Dawn's absolutely right with the interaction that we've had with public safety and taking some steps too with locking bathrooms, when it becomes a problem, it's a safety issue for the rest of the community after hours. things like that. And then I think just the presence of not ignoring them and looking the other way and hoping it's gonna go away. It's being proactive, just like anything else we do with garbage in a park or anything else, is super important. And it's made a big difference. Hasn't solved the problem by any means. I think it's something we're gonna have to get used to. It's gonna only get worse is not the right word, but there's gonna be a larger influx of people that are migrating in this direction for whatever reason. And to solve that problem, the powers to be and the shareholders and hopefully just the communities are gonna have to decide how they wanna help people, in what form or another that we can do that. And there's a lot of challenges there, but a lot of positives that could come out of that. But CPRD, it's impactful on resources, just like it is for the city. If damage occurs and things like that. So it is important that we are aware of it. And I think that's the main thing that we've been proactive with is being aware of it and monitoring the situation and not condoning any damage or stuff like that goes on. Kind of a rambling answer, but we are being proactive, and I think that's super important.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Brian. I know you're very passionate about that topic, and I appreciate that. So, you're sort of our unofficial point person. Okay. So Dawn, we'll hear back from you next month. We'll hear back from you next month, please, about your discussion at the meeting. All right.
It'll be in the minutes. We keep minutes of those meetings.
We're done E, so we're down to F, reports and comments from board members. We'll go left. Director McMaster.
I noticed the roof in the gym area of the aquatic center, we had some water coming through, pouring down there, I think from rain. And that's been a warranty, so probably just giving the contractor a call on that. Hopefully they'll take care of that. It's not bad, but any leak becomes bad. Tara Frank's retirement, are we doing, Tara's been with us a lot of years. Are we doing anything special for her during that, or do we know, or a luncheon or recognition, or?
We'll bring her to the board meeting when she gets back from Hawaii.
Okay. And then what?
We flew her to Hawaii.
Anyway, she's been with us a long time, and Don, you and I remember when we hired her way back in the day, and so she's done a great job with the aquatic center, especially when the aquatic center turned over from the old to the new, and trying to gear up on operating that. So that was really, the pathway at Jakewood Park, if we could go out and at least take some paint and mark those roots that are coming up and bringing that sidewalk up, that would be great from a trip hazard standpoint. So if we get a chance to do that, that would be great.
Director Bizot.
I have one thing that a community member brought to my attention. I don't think this is a conflict of interest because my kids are employees, so we're under the employee deal. But the aquatic center fees, if you look at the family fee, it is $235. If you look at the additional child fee, it's $105. So this particular family has 5 kids, which is disproportional. So maybe there could be a large family loophole. And that was it. That was the only thing I heard from the community this.
Okay, did you share this with the staff yet? Okay, just keep passing it to them.
Sure, thank you.
All right. To my far right, Director Rogers.
Yeah, my biggest thing was already discussed right now, so thank you.
Director Ryerson.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to the old business updates for the access and utility easement for the paddle launch and the bridge over Chehalem.
Okay. I don't have much to say. The legislature started last week in coat and tie for yours truly. For those who don't know, I'm a registered lobbyist at the legislature. I have a couple of clients I represent down there. I'm also the unofficial pro bono lobbyist for Chehalem Park Recreation District. I work closely with Special District Association of Oregon to make sure that nothing bad gets passed in Salem that would be an issue for our district. I can say that 10 days in, there's nothing bad on the horizon yet. So, but I always keep a watchful eye out. So that's all I have to say. Casey, updates on projects and questions. Well, the questions will be us. The updates on projects will be you. You don't get to ask us questions.
Well, like you said, we're working on that Sandra Estate grant, both from the LGGP grant and the conservation grant. So that we're working on. We're Crabtree Park. I found out recently that Paige Knudsen and the county doesn't have an easement through there yet. That was dropped last summer. Mr. Sadlow resigned. So I restarted that process, and hopefully we can get that culvert along with the county to take care of that culvert to the entrance of Crabtree Park. Cultural Center is moving forward. They just submitted a variance request for parking to the city. So as you know, that's kind of been one of the holdups for every project that's been done at the Cultural Center since day one. Jim knows all about that.
How much money have they raised so far?
Sean said about $6 million.
That's pretty impressive. That's just great.
So hopefully construction begins this summer and gets finished up this fall. Greenworks, we've been working on the bypass trail, getting all the all the planning and things together for that, and surveying, and speaking with the commercial development company down at the old mill site in order to get an easement through the property, because of the area that the pathway has to go through requires a railroad crossing, and we're responsible for that. So that's been kind of a process. Bridge is all designed. Come to find out that ODOT's going to be using one of our staging areas when they do the access on the 219 and Winooski and that whole area down there, the bypass. So that may cause some delays. What else? We submitted the master plan to the county for the park district with all the subject districts before the vacation, before the holidays, and are just starting now to hear back from various people in the county. At the same time, we submitted the Ewing Young Bridge project to both the city and the county. So the notice period is coming up here pretty quick. And so we're getting ready for that. Hopefully the county lets us develop the bridge onto our unused property. Fingers crossed. Like we were talking earlier about the RFQ for the Riley property that went out, and it's due February the 15th. So we're hoping by March 15th to have someone, or prior to, maybe even prior to the next board meeting. We're gonna have to make a selection of who we want to do a master plan for the Riley Park. I know there's been at least 4 groups interested in it that I know of. We went through the BMX thing. Parks, Brian's been, should let him talk about that. The only other project that we got going on is our neighbor Pat Darby down at Friends Park, who wants to swap some property at Friends Park for a buildable lot and donate the 5 acres back to us. And right now he's not determined he's gonna do it, but he's gonna take it to a pre-application meeting with the city to determine if he wants to spend the money to do that, because it will cost him, it's a zoning change, it's a partition, surveying fees, and some property assessments, and then whatever the city requires for him to build on that lot. And so he's thinking about taking it to the city to find out what those costs might be, and I told him to look into, he's got to look into PGE, and there's water access to them it's right there in the driveway. But there's a lot of fees involved, so he may end up just selling it to a developer to build a lot. According to Doug Rux, the lot size has to be 5,000 square feet or less, which it's not a big lot, but it allows a fairly good sized house on that property. And Parks has said it can be done, it's just, you gotta do it in a process. Is that park was built with a grant? There's a conversion thing you have to go through, so it's a little bit of effort on our part. And John Bridges has recommended that we kind of let him pay for most everything else, like the zoning change and anything that he wants to do, the partition, the surveying, so it's not a cost to us other than our time. So I will keep you up to date on that. I think that's about it.
Any questions for Casey?
Have any questions?
So the grant this year, the LGGP grant, is almost $5 million this year. It's available. That's
well, that's not an LGGP. That's a
well, the local
federal grant.
Well, the neighborhood grant through Park and Rec through the state is about $5 million this year. So it's good. You can slice the pie.
Anybody else?
Yeah, do you have any updates on the easement for the paddle launch?
I don't. Art, I don't.
Don?
We met with the city the other day, and we discussed that. He didn't see a problem with it, but we have not gotten back with the owner, which we'll do. And I'll let you know when we set that meeting up so you can attend if you would like.
We'll be out second week in February.
We have to find out who has the easement down there. It's got to be the city. There is an easement down to the property.
Right, because they have a pump station down at the
They have a
end.
pump station, but the only reference to easement that I can find is a Crown Zellerback, and that would be way back in the day.
Ted Crawford has some information on that easement.
Okay.
I took that through John Bridges' and he commented, and I think I gave you guys a letter that he commented on. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, any questions for Casey? All right. Next item says pickleball trails, or crossing out trails, golf course advisory committee report and update. So, without further ado, Hunter, haven't seen you in a while.
No, you're not done on hiatus doing too much research. We,
The pickleball committee met?
yes, we met 2 weeks ago to coffee shop.
Good.
Advisory committee, absolutely. And we discussed everything that we're going to talk about tonight. And we decided to go ahead. The reason that I'm speaking tonight, we'll go this briefly and then I'll give you the handouts, is to raise awareness of the district's priority projects, their status, lack or improper use of funds, opportunities created by addressing these issues to fund pickleball and other projects. My goal is not to promote cancellation of any projects, but to change their implementation status from improbable to probable with the shorter time frame for the implementation. 2 primary projects being discussed are the campground design submitted by Chehalem Associates presented to you in the October board meeting, and the geotech report for the trail concerning the bridge over Hess Creek. And I'll give you these handouts. And I'm not going to cover these in detail. These are for your reference and basically address the points that I'm going to be talking to. Thank you. So this is for your reference. Yeah, I have them on. These are all the documents. These are references. Okay. For you that don't know me, my name is Hunter Wiley. I'm the chairman of the Pickleball Advisory Committee. And as part of that committee, we look at ways to fund it and so forth, and understanding the priorities of the district, your commitments and so forth. We look at those things and see what's going on. Currently, you're looking at a campground, and in the description given by the Chehalem Group, paraphrase this shortly, figure out illustrates the vicinity map, proposed development plan, includes 2 phases. Phase 1 is a 40-acre campground with 86 sites, and description 69 standard sites, 9 recreational vehicle sites, so on and so forth. Phase 2 is a potential development of the remaining 50 acres. So is everyone's impression here that this is correct? Okay, first correction, it's a 15-acre campground. Strange they didn't measure that and put it in their study for the appropriateness of the campground. It's 15 acres, usable area. The problem that I've had with the Chehalem report is that it's based on incomplete facts, contradictory facts, contradicted by their own company, and performing essentially bogus traffic counts that really don't show what the overall traffic is in that area, understating the traffic grossly, and so forth. They classify 219 as a minor arterial. You want to say, you know what the major arterial is? Well, it's 99W. That's the only one that's got heavier traffic count on it than 219. They totally discount the existence of the corridor between 99 East and 99 West, which is Eland Road, the I-5 interchange, K Road to 219, and on up to the bypass. Those traffic counts, and I have conducted them, 6 of them independently. We're talking around 2,500 cars per hour for an 8-hour period running in the morning to later in the afternoon. The fact is, I didn't do them during peak hours. I said, well, what theirs did? Well, the non-peak hours, because this is a major corridor, exceeds their peak hour counts. They incorrectly state that there's been no fatalities in that area. In fact, as they state between 2016 and 2020, no fatalities. Well, that's correct if you look at that data, and you only look at a section on 219. Unfortunately, there's been 2 fatalities between 2020 and 2021. I can give you the dates and times, and there were 2 people killed, 1 person killed in each one. And there's 12 fatalities on the corner of McKay Road that feeds all this. Now, that road has become so dangerous that the state had to declare it a safety corridor. It lights all the intersections now, the major intersections, east of 219. It has got special speed limit signs, speed monitoring signs. That is the major feed right in front of the campground. Make no mistake about it. That's where all the traffic comes from. Although the study states that, really, we're using and it's clear in here, and there's no misrepresentation. If you look down at this automatic traffic recorder, they say, look at this. Here's the record, no traffic. We're going to base all of our estimates off of that. Well, they overlook something. That traffic corridor is right next to the new Amazon facility. And I've got a 724-page traffic analysis done by a qualified engineering company that says, bullshit. You've got tons of traffic coming through there now. You know what the name of the company was? Chehalem. They didn't read their own reports. That's a problem. They're misrepresenting to you gross amounts of data, stating this is a safe site. They also don't even count the passing lanes to the southbound side of 219. 3 lanes, 1 shared for passing, 1 up and down lane. They totally overlook that report. They say, well, you only need 2 extra lanes. Actually, you need 3 extra lanes. Now, what's the impact on the Parks District of that? You know how big that cut is out there, right? We'll say that's it. Now it's like this. Same grades, same descending amounts, and so forth. That report isn't worth the money it's written on. Period. They don't take into the fact that when you increase the size of that it's going to cut into people's property on both sides, including the campground. And it's going to decrease the campground approximately 1 acre. That's assuming you can get off with very shallow entrances and exits and using the recommended approaches that was in the report. So now you've got a 14.5 or 14-acre campground. The rest of it surrounding campground is all slope. Some of it is a slope of 1 foot every 2 feet you lose, or 1 foot every 4 feet you lose. You're not going to build stuff on that. So you've already spent in the purchase of that property from Scott McKillop $1.6 million. That land has no known water source on it. The only water on that land is rain. It's been dryland farmed for years. The bottom was used by Bruce Ernst to grow nursery stock, and he pumped it all out of the river. You can't do that anymore. You didn't have the water rights, those are gone. So the land on top, you have no water, no access, and is it really suitable for the purpose intended? That's questionable. 14.5 acres for 80 campsites, and you're encroaching on it already. It's not going to be 80 because if you look at the drawings, and that's included in that packet, the drawing of the parks, there's no space. You're off the edge of a cliff. So I would encourage
you to tie this into pickleball there at some point.
Oh, I will, because I think if you're talking about spending enough, you've spent approximately $2.5 million on something you've done absolutely nothing for. You're tying in, now you're talking about building a massive road system in there, and it's still not even getting the driveway into the place. So we're saying, look, why don't you stop trying to build something where it shouldn't be? Put it someplace where it would be, and that's going to free up funds. You could spend another $5, $6, $7, $8 million on this and have a small park. Or you can move it up the road, like off Wilsonville Road, and build it there without any of these expenses. I mean, that was a bad investment, period. It was known as a bad investment then, for the same reason it's a bad investment now. So that's on that acreage. And
Not for the sake of argument, But I just want to state a situation. Sometimes we land bank pieces of property, case in point, Friends Park was land bank with the understanding that one day that at the prices that we bought it back, I think it was in 2014 when we bought that property, one day Newburgh will move up against it. Boundary will expand and so on and so forth. So we land bank properties for that reason. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Friends Park. We looked way ahead, did that, so we would have the property for the public to use. So you say there's no use for the property. Maybe right now there may not be in your opinion, but in the future, definitely could be.
If, one of the questions I met with Don and.
I didn't want to argue it.
No, I met with Don and Casey to discuss a more specific point in this. Is can a project reach any stage where it's no longer feasible? And I got two answers, yes and no, we worked through it. That's a problem. In current use, this land is not suitable for a park. Getting permission from ODOT to do all this, good luck. And I've spelled out a lot of the detail of stuff they're going to come back at you with. And it's all reasonable stuff. They don't want to build a dangerous intersection, period. On a corridor that has killed lots of people and is potentially killing more. So that's the issue there. Should you continue to pursue this or look someplace else? You better be looking someplace else. You're about to spend a lot more money and get little or nothing for it. And that's one of my interests, is that I think the district needs to spend money wisely on these projects. I didn't say they should cancel the campground. They need to move it someplace else where it can be built more cost effectively. This property is not it. The second thing we spoke of in that meeting was the first bridge across the Hess Creek. And we had done I had a professional engineering firm do a study on your geotech report, and covered this with Casey and Don. And so the report was fine. Do you understand what this report is requiring you to do? And not really. So we said, it's going to be required that you get civil construction people in here to go through and basically do all the remediation of the soil so you can build on it, do all your piling sets, clear out any hazardous material, and basically create you a constructible ground that you can build a bridge on. You know what that's going to cost? Well, the engineering group that I work with specializes in building stuff on lumber mill sites, large jobs like $150 million or so forth. And they deal with civil contractors all the time. They said, in today's market, these guys are stacked up. They got more business than they know what to do. So they get you for an engagement fee, come to the door of $500,000. And he said, we've seen this on project after project after project. And then they charge you for the work on top of it. So we said, okay, so we're looking at, our estimates are between $500,000 and $1.25 million. But what you need to do is go talk to your engineers who designed this bridge and get quotes. Get them to give you people you can talk to get quotes for this, because you didn't budget it, and the district did not budget that. Well, let's just, and from what I understand from Casey, I didn't hear any updates on that you said you guys were hiring an engineer or something like that, but I didn't hear any updates on the civil construction cost. So I guess there wasn't any.
Well, we're going out we're gonna do an RFQ for CMCG.
Okay.
And get that started.
So let's assume that it's $1 million. That's not your budget. You can't build a bridge. That's just to prepare the ground. Now, another picture in there, and I talked to the city about this, not about this in particular. I was talking about the paper mill site, being an industrial site, and will be in future, commercial, whatever. And they said, and they brought up the fact that they're building a trail around the front of that property on the ridge that will connect through, basically where the boat launch is, road is. It will you can take the road in and bypass the railroad, by the way. You don't have to cross the tracks. And join the north side of your proposed trail. anyway, it comes around there, it goes between both sewage ponds and comes right out between the, right up front of the sewage plant. Okay, so how are you gonna get there? Well, if you build your bridge, you're gonna cross your bridge on Hess Creek, and you're gonna turn right around, cross back across Hess Creek on Winooski to get down to that road, that trail. Geez, or you could just go down to Winooski and come up without building the bridge. That'd be a big savings, since you don't have the money for it anyway. I would think that would be of interest to the district to, one, accelerate the trails project ahead. I already talked to ODOT about potentially getting right-of-way on the south side of the flyover. They didn't think there'd be a problem with that for the district. Where you could, and they're already gonna build all the sidewalks and bikeways down the right-hand side of 219, all the way to the old Winooski. And that's gonna go away anyway. Anyway, they're gonna turn it there. So we join the other sidewalks. So you can take your trail from where it ended on the bypass, cross the light there, go past the flyover, cut through by the the animal shelter, cut down, and then cut up Winooski. What's it cost you? Chump change. You can start building that today. And you're gonna tie in with the city's trail paths, which they get to pay for. Is there something about several $1 million here that's kind of, I'm missing? And building the trails sooner versus later? And one final point was in the request for the grant you submitted, and I mentioned this in this report, and our meeting notes from Don and Casey are documented in this packet. Was one of the things I asked you, Bar, in this grant, it says, are you familiar with and understand all the technical requirements of this grant request? Well, I can say categorically, no, you're not. And I just proved it in 2 cases. One was you didn't even know you needed civil contractors or the massive amount of expense that's going to cost you, which typically will defund that project. Now you're building one road that's even more complex from the standpoint of height and so forth. So to remediate that problem, I requested that the department go talk to ODOT, the maintenance group, the design group, to determine whether they could either add to an existing bridge or design, when they go back the other way, basically a trail carrying capacity on the new bridge. So you guys are out of the trail business. Should you pay for it? Yes. Do you have to maintain it? No. They assure the design, they build it, and you're out of that business. And you're back into building trails on either end, which is more suitable than what you're trying to do, which is enter an area that you have no expertise in whatsoever. That's all I have to say.
Okay, and you shared all this with the staff?
Yeah, it's all there in writing.
It's also
I've already shared it.
recorded.
Yeah, I've also shared this in a meeting in mid-October, requested if there were any updates in writing in mid-December. I received nothing, and then left a phone message this last week saying, is there any updates you received? So I'm trying to work with the staff. I'm making recommendations for a successful project and trying to avoid millions of dollars in unnecessary expenses, which will free up something for federal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Do you want to say something, Steve?
Just a golf course update after this.
Yes, that's the beginning of that. Next is the golf course update. We actually have 2 members of the golf course advisory committee here.
This will be quick, I swear.
Well, so I'm just going, I'm actually going to call on Art Gregory first, since he chaired the last meeting, to give us and then give Steve a chance to chime in.
As Don said, my name is Art Gregory, and we had our first meeting of this year. It was Tuesday of this week. It was a good meeting. We were able to discuss the different factors that we're looking into. And at points it was kind of lively, but that's good. You know, it kind of helps to bring the committee together. The things that we're looking at, our primary area of focus is on the clubhouse, the golf course, and the third nine. Other things to enhance the course that we've looked at has been the driving range. There's about 3 areas in particular that we were focusing on. One of them had to do with covering part of the teeing area for the golf range, and we're still looking on that. We're still working with that, trying to get some cost information. The second thing is we've had one of our members look into different types of mats for the teeing area as well, and that's still an open item. And one of our members is focused on getting more clarification on that aspect. The third area under the driving range was a fence. We had started talking about fencing in the driving range. And since then, we've come off of that idea, but we believe that there's some work being done to try to collect more of the range balls that are going down into the Canyon Creek area that are very, very difficult to retrieve. And golf balls cost money, so I think perhaps Don and Casey and Chehalem, as well as the maintenance people, may be looking into a solution or attempt to find a solution to capture more golf range balls that we don't cut back on our annual purchases. So that's still in the works, and that's one of the areas that I'll be looking into with the administration here at the CPRD. One of the things that was brought up in our last meeting had to do with permanent restrooms, and we had quite a discussion on that area. And the committee voted to not pursue permanent restrooms on the golf course at this time, so that's off of our agenda. And that kind of summarizes where we are. We're a new committee, and we're still trying to find our way, which we'll do, but beyond that, I don't really have much more to report.
So just for the record, I was gone. I had to go to a joint transportation committee public hearing that would start at 5 o'clock. So Art chaired the meeting for us, and Steve took some excellent notes, which I still need to forward to Kat. So Steve, if you wanted to speak to.
Thanks, Art. Yeah, just a couple quick. I'm like, you know, we definitely have a not eclectic isn't the right word. We have a diverse group of minds on this committee, all 7 of us, and you know, including Don. Big picture. So again, I'm passionate about how things operate. You know, there's 2 things. You got to keep the course in good shape, and you got to keep the facilities in good shape. And you all know, 17 years. No offense, Jim, I respect the history of the 50 years or 40 years and all that, but the triple wide and this, I got pictures of the 7 or 8 leaks. I mean, it is dilapidated as a compliment. It truly is.
We're talking about
we're talking about the clubhouse. So looking at the budget that my wife went through, all 100, how many pages, honey? A couple hundred. So and Hunter, for example, you go out there and in 2025, there's a line item for $100,000 clubhouse design fee into the budget right here, right now. The next year is a $300,000 clubhouse build. Now, unless you're getting a mobile home, that's not going to sniff anything. So the 100 grand and all this, but listen, the thing I'm most concerned about, as we talked about earlier, with changes coming potentially, is Don had communicated to us that starting in July 1 with the new fiscal year, that there's going to be a $5 surcharge onto every round of golf that's played to add to this clubhouse fund. So I want to know, number one, is that I haven't seen anything that in writing or anything. Is that happening? Do we know?
July 1.
July 1, that's been approved.
It was approved at the last board meeting.
It was?
Yeah.
In November, that was actually approved. Okay, I beg your pardon. So with that, and then something we didn't mention, I have volunteered to serve as the fundraising chair, fundraising and donation chair. I'm passionate about it. I know a lot of people with plenty of money that would want to donate and work towards this once it's down the road a little ways. But I guess I'm about big picture, and we're we're working together. We've got all different ideas, and we're talking. Remember when I first got here, when we first came to y'all, and it was like, my wish list was the tent's got to go, put a nice permanent structure, open air. That the clubhouse has got to go, put a permanent structure. The driving range needs to be off the ground with the mats in the winter, the ropes in the summer, and all that. And all that takes manpower, woman power, and that goes back to the cycle of what I was talking about of being able to retain and maintain employees that are happy, healthy, that want to work, and they feel good about what they're doing. So I'm about solutions. I'm not about bringing problems and bitching, moaning, and whining. I'm about finding a solution to that. So while I am part of this committee for now, I'm going to be working towards how can we help that, because I just have this hunch from feedback that I get, not proactive, by the way, me and the dogs, throughout the community, that we go into this cycle of, well, are we going to be able to keep this person that's a major part of maintaining the course? Are we going to be able to keep this person that's an important part of maintaining this? And around, and basically, I'm not confident that we can keep employees. And without that, none of this that we want to do is even possible, because where I would come in is, hey, Ancestry Brewing, McMenamins, whoever it is, and start talking to all these people that want to sit down and say, hey, let's get you involved in this project, right? So again, I maintain, I'm going to end it with this. You don't have to be a golfer at all to appreciate a nice, attractive space, whether it's the wine and the whatever club, purple hats, or whatever the hat society and all this, whatever it may be. People that non-golfers want to be a part of a nice facility, and the land is too beautiful. Again, 8 years here now officially. I've fallen in love with it. It's not just because I live there, but I appreciate God's creation and the buildings and these things. It's time to change it. It truly is. And so looking through the budget, again, thanks to Don, Hunter, there's like, what is it, 1.8 million in pickleball coming up in a couple. I saw the numbers.
No, those aren't real numbers.
They're not?
No, they're all grants.
Well, either way.
You can't budget grants.
Us as a committee, we're working together. We're finding a way to get through these things. But big picture, we need the people to maintain the course, and then the ability to be able to raise money to make the permanent structure a reality. And that's where I'm all in for that. I'll stand out anywhere. I'll go door to door. I'll do anything I can to help raise money for this. And I know they would do it. I know they would. So thank you. We'll just keep working on it.
Don, could I put in a positive word for golf? I know this is unbelievable.
I'm glad I'm sitting down. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, please sit down and lay back. Okay. I've been working with Kellen to get all the data from Golf Now electronically. I have it. So many of the things that you were considering, like raising fees, whether it's for residents or non-residents, or whether it's for your yearly annual, you can model that now. So that should be an assistance in determining what impact a fee would have given what your current revenues are and your mix of people. You'll also be able to model the number of residents playing versus non-residents, what the overall growth is in the course. Kellen says basically he's dealing with an accounting system with Golf Now, and this will give him basically a sales merchandising system to take a look at it that way. From the clubhouse, why don't you send out an RFP to business developers or real estate developers and say, look, we would lease you this land for $1 a year for 15 years to build this. You get to operate it under lease. At the end of the 15-year lease, we own all the leasehold improvements, and we'll come back and negotiate a lease again. You don't have to spend anything.
He makes good points. It's just, again, it's thinking bigger than a triple wide, just bigger picture.
Yeah, well,
we're going to consider anything we can consider at the committee.
How much is that
get
picture cost, the golf course clubhouse?
The one that architect Bond put together up in Sherwood, I haven't seen a number on it. I've heard 2 to 3 million, something like that, probably. Just a rough estimate.
Guessing his is more than that.
Maybe more than that.
I think it's more, yeah.
But again, remember for us that live here and love living here. We got, our joke is, it's not really a joke, but it is. We got Rose Marino, or name your most expensive joint in town, all the way down to like something else that's at the far end, and there's not a whole lot of middle ground here. Everybody that lives here knows that. So that's in big picture, somewhere good to go and eat and drink.
Things went downhill the minute Walgreens bought that corner in our Circle Disappeared. What can I say?
Mr. Chair, can I say something?
Direct wrong, Ally.
Steve, I appreciate your comments about staff and maintaining staff. And I would also like to point out that, I don't know about y'all, but in the last 3 years, hiring people is one of the hardest things in the world to do, or maintaining them, because people are moving at a rapid pace from job to job to job. And in this past budget year, we added $1 million to the payroll in order for them to be able to increase existing salaries as well as to try to pull new people in. We're very, very aware that this district doesn't exist without the people. I'd also like to kind of defend the staff, which I think have been kind of beat up a little bit today. There are so many offerings in this community because of this Park and Rec department, that we don't have everything that every person in the world wants. It's rough. You're talking about a $7 million pickleball. You're talking about a $4 million golf thing. There's X amount of dollars, and they're trying to maintain the vast number of resources that we have in this community. We've got BMX, we've got trails, we've got golf, we've got pool, we've got cultural center. We're a very rich community because of all these resources. And I have to say, it doesn't happen without them. They bust their ass every single day. And all they get is complaints. And it makes me sad that people can't appreciate what they're doing every single day, not being paid that much money. And they're still here. Most of these people have been here for years, and I am so appreciative of them. So I just want you to know we're trying to do what we can to help them help us, to make this place an even better community than it is right now. And I think there's a lot of positive here, and I feel like we need to appreciate staff for the really good work that they are doing. And maybe your comments and everybody's comments here is all about the board. We can only do so much, right? We approve budgets, we approve policy, they operate the thing. It is a ginormous organization when it comes to the amount of land that is zoned to. Yeah, 350 acres of the mountain.
So thank you for that. This is my final thing. So just so it's not misconstrued, since we're, public and live, I haven't beat up one employee. I appreciate the employees. I've actually said the opposite, Lisa, that employees, and I would never name names and give up anonymity, have come to me voicing their concerns to me because they know I'm safe and I'm caring to listen to them. I have not beat up one single person that works for this district.
Okay. I'm
so you're not
sorry.
misconstruing.
I'm hearing.
I got
I'm
people that
hearing
come
some
to me.
negativity, and I'm just.
They just come to me and they're saying, Steve, we can't get a mechanic here. There's no way. I was supposed to get this race. I didn't get this race. Steve, what do you think of the condition of the golf course? I think you guys are doing it a great, considering the weather we've had. These are real conversations, Lisa, because I care about these people, not the opposite.
I know.
I don't want you to misconstrue anything.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm just saying people are concerned. Yeah, but you're right. You made great points about trying to hire people. You're absolutely right. So thank you.
Thank you all for your input.
Thanks for that paper.
Moving along. Update right away at the easement at Friends Park. Do we have more to talk about on that case here? Did you cover?
No, I covered that.
Thank you. Grundy access and utility easement for power lines.
We talked about that.
From the superintendent's desk, superintendent's report.
There is, for the board's information, matter of fact, we had one board member there. I made a presentation to the Hillis group with their they called me and asked me if I'd come, and I said yes. There is also on the county level, so I've been told, and I'm giving you secondhand information, and I've been asked to attend a meeting next Thursday at the county with the planning department. There is a movement trying to outlaw trails in the forest and the agricultural type land, which means like with, again, I do not know the details. I'm only telling you, I intend on going to the meeting to find out what's going on, because I don't know right now. But my comment to Yam Hillis and other people has been that we all have to work together, and that it will take time, but if it's a good idea, it will happen. It's just a matter of time. And that was pretty much what I said. The attorney, John Bridges, has been working with the county. Occasionally I talk with John, trying to decide. The county is the one putting off everything. We can't get any answers or any responses. So we'll just keep trying to do that. And I'll report back to you what I find out about the trail system. What I also want the board to realize is that we have who is responsible for trails. Whose responsibility is it? Is it Chehalem Park and Recreation District? Is it City of Newburgh, City of Dundee, Yamhill County? Who takes on that responsibility? There are different types of trails. There are urban trails, which are trails like at Friends Park inside our cities, inside the city of Newburgh as well as Dundee. We have trails all over. Then you have rural trails. That is like our equestrian trails, bike trails out at the Riley Park. But there's also what we call connector trails. And connector trails connects neighborhoods to neighborhoods, parks to parks, communities to communities. Who's responsible for that? It's almost as if no one wants to take any leadership or do anything. It's a little bit frustrating at times because we all walk. Everybody probably in this room walks to something, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. As it's becoming more prevalent and enjoyed, it would seem locally we're trying to ignore it, and we're going away from it. My question is why? Why would we do that? Where are we going? What are we going to do? It's not going away. But anyway, I'll report back what I find out.
So I'm curious to hear, I mean, I don't want to belabor this, it's almost 8 o'clock, but I'm curious to hear, and it seems to me that, you know, from what I'm hearing about this meeting, that it's, you know, it's a political thing by the county, and the current makeup of the commissioners to make sure that the Hillis Trail doesn't get built. And I'm just speculating, I have no knowledge, that's what it sounds like. And, you know, I'm the one in Tom's 4-1 vote, so I don't, you know, I'm not in favor of it. of us doing that anyway, but I would certainly urge the county, if they're listening, if you don't want that trail built, then do something that, you know, bans that trail from being built. Don't pass some broad-ass thing that says we're not gonna have any trails anywhere in the county on any forest land or any agricultural land, which would impact our trails at Riley Park, would impact our trails in other places. You know, I don't want some overreaction from the county on that one particular political issue to impact every other possible trail, you know, in town. That would be ludicrous. But
That's probably what I'll state, Don, and go with, but.
My thoughts on this is that, you know, the voters of Newburgh, Dundee, and part of the county has to create a special district to provide recreation because it wasn't being provided in our area like they wanted. And so our, you know, there's, if you look at the city, they have police, fire, infrastructure, but we were asked to provide recreational opportunities throughout the county and the two cities that we take care of and provide this to the public. If we go backwards, then we as a board are not doing what we're supposed to do to promote recreation that the voters asked us to do in the first place. I understand there may be some other agencies that are against this and that, but I think those other agencies also have to realize how important we are, how much economic growth we bring to the community, how much economic growth trails bring to communities. And look at those numbers, because I think that's where we're going. And, you know, I was just in Roseburg, and they have a trail down there with the county and the BLM and the city. And they built those trails there with ODOT underneath the freeway. And they did it for economic development, and our county needs to look at that. We need to continue to look at that as an organization. So I just don't want people to think, you know, oh, Chehalem Park and Rec, who are they? We don't have them anywhere else. We were asked by the voters to do the things that we do, to provide these recreational opportunities, whether it be golf course, aquatics, trails, parks, cultural centers, senior centers, all those type of things that we have and do, and we need to continue to do. So I'll get on my soapbox.
Yeah, what's interesting is the trail that we're building now with ODOT, with the bridge. I don't disagree with anyone that bridge is expensive, but where is that money coming from? Well, it's coming in a grant. And if we don't get that money to build this bridge, I guarantee you that money will go to Wilsonville, Portland, Lake Oswego, someplace else. Why are we entitled to it? Why shouldn't we get that money? For instance, the $5 million or the $6 million grant that we're going for is only 10% local match. So we're bringing in $6 million and we're having to pay $660,000. To me, that seems like a pretty good deal. Why wouldn't we go for that? What's wrong with that? I don't understand how the thinking is. It's no, don't do that because we want to do this and only this. Well, this will cost local money. Where is that money coming from? And how do we put it in? And we're talking about millions, and we just don't have it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I'll go to that meeting and report back to you.
Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Staff reports. Heidi?
Nothing.
Thank you. No, we're good, too.
Casey, we've heard plenty from you. Richard?
Yes.
Present?
Yeah, present. I think, no, I've been working on our server room for the district office, going from a old janitor's closet to a air-conditioned room where the servers will be happy, so the data will be safe and secure.
Don, one last thing. We appointed the budget committee last meeting.
Yes, we did.
not?
We did.
We did.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure.
Is Colin online?
Yes.
I'm here. I have nothing new to report, though.
Okay.
Hi, Kellen.
Thank you.
Grass is
Hello, hello.
Cap?
Everything's great.
I'd like to thank the staff.
That's probably the best series of staff reports we've ever had.
I think I talked too much.
Do any board members have anything they would like to comment on, add, et cetera, to the 2 items under correspondence? So this is comments, evaluations, or miscellaneous info.
No, thank you.
Do we need to put a note by the suggestion box at the aquatic center saying that if you don't sign your letter, it won't be given consideration? Since we see the same.
It's the same
letter
message
every time,
single one, yeah.
and it's very derogatory to other members in the.
Maybe it's good therapy for that person.
About the flooding at Friends Park, the large part of the backyard.
I've reached out to the homeowner there and addressed that, and we should be able to rectify that and help them out with their situation that's created in their backyard. And as a neighbor and a friendly neighbor, and make sure that
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna do something we do very rarely at this district. Let me address people both in the room and who may be watching online. We are about to go into executive session. Oregon law allows districts to do such for a short list of things. Labor negotiations are one of those things. Real estate transactions are one of those things. Personnel issues are one of those things. And this board is going to discuss some personnel issues in executive session. Executive session means that we love you all, but you're all going to leave. The press is allowed to attend executive session as sort of a guard against any shenanigans or whatnot. And apparently we have a reporter maybe coming tonight just for the executive session. But they cannot report on it. It's the first time we've done this in the Zoom era. So what we're going to do, frankly, is we're going to end the Zoom meeting right now. I'm going to assure you that we are not going to do anything else out of executive session other than adjourn the meeting. We're not allowed to make decisions in executive session. If we come up with an issue that we want to discuss more towards a decision, then we will do that next meeting in the public session. So we are going to end the Zoom broadcast right now. And again, the only thing you're going to miss is us adjourning, because we do have to come back into session. That's the only thing that's going to happen when we come out of executive session. So with that, need to ask folks that are in the room to leave, other than Kat, who will take notes, and Dawn, who's our Chief Executive Officer. Richard, if you would please end the Zoom thing, and you just leave too. Thank everyone for your attendance.